Well, hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs, and welcome to an exciting, not game designer, but game developer interview that I am doing with none other than Mr. Alex Tabb. How are you doing this evening, Alex?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Well,
a
good.
long-time listener, first-time caller.
There we go. Well, if you say ditto, I think I'll have to kick you off the channel there. And maybe only you and a few other people of our generation might actually get that reference there. So it looks like we got about 5 people who have tuned in so far. We're waiting eagerly for the presentation to start. So for those of you that are out there, if you are tuning in, we are going to be talking about La Bataille de Prussisch-Eylau. This is the 3rd edition from Clash of Arms. And if you can, just type in and let us know where you're tuning in from. And then obviously, if you have questions as we go forward, then go ahead and put those in the comment section, and we'll be able to post those and hopefully do our best to answer them for you. So, Alex, I mean, most of the people that tune into the show know that I'm here in sunny Southern California. Where on earth do you call home?
I am on the other side of the country. I am in upstate New York on the Hudson River, across the river from West Point. So we're in the Hudson Valley.
Okay. Well, very good. So I'm sure this time of year it's starting to look very nice with the fall colors and all that.
It is spectacular up here this time of year. This is why we love it up here. I mean, I spent the last 30 years in New York City, and we just recently relocated up here because it is just really lovely up here. It's really very pretty.
Well, very good. Well, very good. Well, and we only have really 2 colors in California. It's brown and then it's on fire. So those are pretty much it. I mean,
I lived in LA for 5 years. I know.
Yeah. Well, you were down in the what was it, Long Beach area? So
Yes,
that's
I was in Seal Beach area. Yeah.
Okay.
Belmont Shore.
Yeah. No, that's lovely down there, and you've got the ocean and the nice breeze. So a far distance from the Hudson Valley. So
New York was the only place that could take me away from LA. I really loved LA. I had a great time out there. I thought LA was a wonderful place. You can't argue with 300 beautiful days a year. You just can't.
That is true. That is true. Well, very good. Well, talking about beautiful things, I just got my copy of Eylau. It showed up today, courtesy of Mr. Ed Wimble in Clash of Arms Games. So I had a chance to kind of look through that really quickly. But so I'll be doing, for those of you that are tuning in, I'll be doing an unboxing video. I had featured a video, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, with some of the early components that I'd received. So the production components, but they didn't have everything all together. So I think it featured the box and the maps and the order of battle chart that were available. And so now I've got all the rest of it. So I'll do a full-fledged unboxing here shortly. But Alex, you are the game developer, and I usually always ask my folks who are on the channel, whether they're game designers or in your case, a game developer, how did you get involved in wargaming? How did you get involved in this hobby?
Wow. So I'm sure you've probably never heard this one before, but I started at D&D when I was in
that's me. That was my
junior high.
Yep.
And I grew up outside Philadelphia, in a town called King of Prussia, if anyone's familiar with that. And our local game store was the Complete Strategist. And you'll never guess who was running the Complete Strategist back then.
Shot in the dark, Ed Wimble. Yeah, there you go.
So friends of mine got me involved in D&D, and we used to play D&D every Friday night at the store until midnight. You'd close the store and let us hang out, a big group. And then from there, I saw these guys in the back room playing these games that were like super cool. And the first game that I really picked up was Squad Leader. I'm sure no one has told you that either.
Another gateway drug to war games. Yeah.
Oh, this is the old school. This is, Squad Leader, the old original game, the cardboard mounted maps. And, we play the Russians versus the Germans, the Soviets versus the Germans. And I just sort of got hooked on these things, and we started expanding our game selection. And then, playing things with the Korean conflict, World War II. And then I guess it was like one Saturday, Ed was running this demo of this game, and he was showing, it's like, it came in this Ziploc bag. And back in those days, Ziploc bags were like, wow, what is that? And it was Marshall Enterprises. And he had it out, and it was like, I'd never seen anything like it. Never seen anything so colorful.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, any of you who happen to know Ed is really great with sort of telling stories and just talking about the time period. And this, I got to think this is like, so this is probably 1979, 1980. So this was the young Ed Wimble.
Right.
Big handlebar mustache, and just full of these amazing stories about the Napoleonics. And he said, yeah, you want to play? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he threw me in. And I sort of got interested back then. It was great. It was a lot of fun. This great cast of characters. A lot of them I'm still friends with and still game with.
Well, cool. And then did you... were you able to continue to play war games through college and into your career, or did you take a holiday from it at some point?
Unfortunately, like many people, I got lost in college. I still played in college. After college, I joined the government and I went overseas and got consumed by my career. I spent, a lot of time overseas, and I drifted away from it. For all the reasons that everyone drifts away from it, your professions, travel, girls, whatever it happened to be. And I was away for a long time. I stopped gaming for 30 years. And then there's this very sad story. So the guy I used to play squad leader with, I was best friends with in high school and college. His name was Adrian. I went to college. He joined the Navy after college, and we sort of drifted apart. I stopped playing games. He was in the Navy and doing all his things. I was traveling all over the world. And I came back from overseas and was just, like everybody, just sort of consumed with life. And we had lost touch. And I had gotten his phone number and he had my number, but we never really reached out. He had kids. I have a daughter. And then probably about 6 years ago, I get a call, turns out from Ed Wimble, telling me that my friend Adrian had cancer and was dying. And he wanted to let me know. And he gave me his phone number, and I immediately reached out the next day. And he was in hospice at that point, and he couldn't speak. And we never got a chance to talk. And it broke my heart. I don't have many regrets in life, but that was one of my biggest regrets, not contacting him. I spoke to his wife, of course, after it passed away. I was at the funeral and everything. He had my number, and he felt sort of the same way. He never reached out. But that was the impetus for me to get back into gaming. And I sort of got back into it and really got back into La Bataille really heavily with some buddies of mine, and just really fell in love with it again and realized that this is what gives me so much joy. Life is hard. In fact, everything is hard. Gaming is just fun.
There you go. I think you speak for a lot of us that had kind of gotten away from the hobby. And oftentimes it's a case of suddenly that taste of mortality that you go, oh, am I really going to spend all my time focusing on this career when I can actually be doing some other stuff that's fun? So yeah, similar story with me. It was my father who passed away, and I had pneumonia, and it was, it all happened at the same time. And actually around the same time, I'm contacted by Ed Wimble, who I never met before, who reached out to me and said, hey, I like your videos. You want to come out to Consem and watch us play a game? And so that was the trigger for me to get back into it in a more serious way, and to, meet a whole slew of new people and make new friends and reconnect with old friends. So it's a great hobby, and I'm glad that you found your way back. I'm sorry that it came at the
Yeah,
with some
I think it
guilt,
was
but
his.
that's the nature of the universe.
I tend to think it was his final gift to
Yeah.
get me back into something that I really, really enjoyed. But for a million reasons, none of them good, I walked away from. And now I'm really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the camaraderie. I'm enjoying the intellectual and emotional challenge of playing. It's fun. I get wrapped around the axle sometimes, like everybody, but I think for the most part, I do pretty well. We've played a little bit.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
You
We
know,
you and I met, about 2 years ago now
yes,
at one of the La Bataille, organizations or gatherings that
events,
happened at, Gettysburg
yes,
that, oh, what's his name? It's Tom,
Fernbach,
Fernbach,
Fernbacher,
yes, had organized, and so
yes.
that's where you and I first met, and then you were out here at Consim, and so that was a lot of fun. So yeah, uh, so that's kind of your background story. Um, doesn't sound like you come from a game publishing background. You come
No,
from,
no,
I know you were involved with Wall Street after your job with the government. So
yes.
how did you then end up getting tasked to or volunteering or however you were cajoled into becoming the game developer for La
Yeah.
Bataille de Prussisch-Eylau third edition?
So let's be clear. I am not the designer. I did not design La Bataille. There are lots of folks who have their hand in that. I am not that person. I don't want to take credit for that. But what happened was, my buddy and I, Bill, who you know,
Right.
um, were at Gettysburg, our first time there, and another mutual friend of ours, Brennan, had set up Eylau, the
Hmm.
original Eylau, and we
Right.
started playing it, and we had a great time playing it, but we were playing, I think we were playing 30 rules, which we weren't very familiar with. We're fifth edition guys.
Right.
And so after Gettysburg, we're like, we should really play this fifth edition and see how it plays. And we put it out with the original counters. And I think you've got a slide of what the original counters look like. They were beautiful, but guess what? You can't play fifth edition with these counters. It just doesn't work. Mainly because there's no command and control capability with the counters. They don't tell you really what corps they're with or what division or who their commanders are. The artillery counters don't have enough information so you know who they belong to. And it was like, oh, this is just not gonna. This is impossible. And so part of my background when I was on Wall Street, we had a company on Wall Street. I did a lot of electronic design. After we left Wall Street, I had a startup, so I got very into graphics and doing a lot of really interesting graphic stuff, a lot of software with Adobe. And I'm like, oh, I can figure this out. I can, these aren't that hard to make. That was a really stupid idea, but I sort of fell into the hole of like, oh, and so I started trying to design counters on Microsoft PowerPoint. And you can do it on Microsoft PowerPoint, but it's not easy. And then from there, I sort of switched over and started developing counters on Adobe Illustrator, and started working on how we can make the counters more friendly, more fifth edition friendly, putting more information on the counters so that you can actually have command and control and do command ranges and all the really great stuff that comes with the newer rule set. And so I was playing with that, and I created counters, and I'd seen this video by this guy on how to create counters. I wonder who did that video. And I'm like, I can do that. And so I made counters based on the graphics I did, and we set it up, and it actually played really pretty well. And I made the horrible mistake of showing Ed, my old buddy, what I had done. He's like, these are pretty good. But he goes, they're just like, yeah, a lot of people do this. That's great. We want to. I'm working on redoing Eylau, but it was bogged down for a whole bunch of reasons. And so what I said is, look, let me play around with this stuff. I'll create a whole set for you. Then you can send it off to the artist, and he can actually take my work and use it. He's like, great. And so I sent the stuff to Ed. Ed sent it to the artist. And for a bunch of different reasons, which I won't go into, the artist had to drop the project.
Right.
And it was like the artist had the work for 5 months and didn't do anything with it, unfortunately. And we're like, trying to get this stuff out. In the meantime, Ed had already printed up the new maps, which are just gorgeous. Right. I don't know if you showed people the new map. The new Eylau map it's snow covered. It's really well done. I think Charlie Kibler, is that it? Did the map?
Yes. Yeah.
Charlie did an amazing job on these maps. It really printed on beautiful paper. And so Ed and I started talking about trying to find another artist. How can we do it? And I said, Ed, let me take a whack at trying to do these for the actual print version. And he's like, I don't know. It's one thing to be a counter designer as a hobbyist. It's a completely different thing to do it for production. And I'm like, how hard could it be?
Famous last words.
I ran a company on Wall Street. I was overseas in Africa for 5 years, overthrowing governments or whatever. I can do this. Well, lo and behold, it was really friggin' hard because there's a way you have to design and develop the counters. You have to do certain processes. They have to be layered properly. You have to use certain types of colors. And it was quite the experience, but we got it done. And so it took a little while. Ed was amazingly patient with me, but we finally got it to press, and I'm really proud of it. It looks really good. So yeah, this is like our first real play test with Ed. These are my handmade counters. These are the counters I made by hand. And I think this is sort of midway through the day with I think this is Devou's Corps coming in and pushing.
It's third
pushing
corps.
The Russians back. And this is actually, this is actually a really interesting area. So you see all these exhausted counters.
Right.
So for those who don't know, the double hash squiggly line are exhausted counters. So the play test was Ed Wimble, my buddy Bill, our friend Tom Bailey, who some of you may know. I think he helped design or develop Karuna, and myself. And this is Tom Bailey. I don't know how he did this. In the middle of the battle, he pulls off a grand charge with the Russian cavalry. He's Golitsyn. And in the middle, it had been snowing for like 5 turns straight.
Right.
And it was really just, everyone was like, this damn snow, this damn snow, this damn snow. And the snow let up for 1 turn. And he was perfectly positioned for a grand charge. And he hit the French just as they're mounting. Devou's mounting his major assault on Finest Southgard. And he just blew through the French. And the French were like, it was like bowling pins. I have never seen such a well done grand charge in 5th edition rules, because it's really tough to get a grand charge in 5th edition. And he did a great job. It was spectacular. And this is like the aftermath of that. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and just to let people know, these are the playtest counters. So the photos that we're going to be showing are ones from the playtest. So while the colors and the numbers, for the most part, are similar, I know, having been involved with the playtest myself, that I know some of the numbers changed on the sizes of the Russian batteries and some other things like that. But for the most part, the color scheme and everything else is the same. And I think what I appreciated about it, as far as test counters go, they were great test counters. You couldn't have done a better job making test counters. I've seen some test counters that are just like, oh, how exactly is this going to work? Dog-eared and sometimes miscut and stuff like that. So these were great, and certainly made things a lot easier to use. Let's see.
We ran 3 or 4 different versions of play testing ourselves. We had you play test. We had some other people play test. We gave it a lot of play testing, And I played both the French and the Russians, and and I don't know. I guess in the original game, I felt like it was pretty. The French had not an easy time of it, but the French could carry the day.
Yeah.
You would fight, 3 fights, and 2 out of the 3 times, I think the French would have a victory.
Yes.
Not so in this. It's much harder for the French. And when I was talking to Ed about it, this is actually looks like pretty close to the original setup. I was talking to Ed about, is it too stacked against the French? And he said something which like blew my mind, which is really astute. He said, Napoleon couldn't win this fight. What makes you think you could? And that put it into perspective. I mean,
Yeah.
Napoleon was coming off of Austerlitz, Auerstadt and Jena. He had some of his most amazing grand tactical strategic victories of any battlefield commander. And he gets to Eylau, and he is hamstrung, right? Benningsen really chose his ground well, had positioned things to accentuate his artillery. The snow really screwed with the French. Marshal Augereau stumbles into a snowstorm, and all of a sudden the snow lets up, and he's sitting in front of 2 grand batteries and a whole host of Russian cavalry.
Yeah.
And in the end, he couldn't win the day, And Ed was like, what makes you think you're going to win 2 times out of 3? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Now, having said that, it's not easy for the Russians to win either. It's a tough fight. The French have really good troops. They've got some really just massively strong battalions. And it's just such a fun thing. And the overriding goal we had coming to this project, and we really tried to, was don't screw it up. This is a great game. Right. Just don't screw it up.
So Perry asked a question: are the enclosed rules 5th edition or regs or something else?
They are 5th edition. These are 5th edition rules. We've added some special rules to take into consideration the events of the day. And the special rules are very different than the original special rules. A perfect example, in the original, version 1 or edition 1 and edition 2, the game went till 10 p.m. at night, but there was no evening or nighttime. So when we were doing our research, when I was doing my research, the battle is in early February. It's in northeastern Poland, which is basically Prussia. Today, the battle is in, it's by Kaliningrad. It's actually in Russia.
Right.
That little section of Russia that is separated from the mainland of Russia. It is a new moon, so there was no moon, and it was a snowstorm. It was basically dark by 5 o'clock at night, right? In the original game, it was perfectly light until 10. That's what made it much easier for the French. They could continue to push and push and push. So we've added dusk, we've added evening hours, so to make it more.
To make it realistic, for goodness.
Exactly.
Sake. Yeah.
We played with the rules around the Cossacks. In the original game, the Cossacks were running behind the Cossacks would run behind the French lines and dance around and do whatever they want. It's much harder for the Cossacks to do things like that with 5th edition. And then the special rules, the Cossacks have a real hard time charging anything. They're really good at stopping countercharges. They're great at countercharges, but
right.
So we've tried to keep it accurate. It's definitely a 5th edition version, but it's definitely, there's a lot more, we think, texture and nuance that we tried to add to the game.
Yeah, no, and having play tested it with 5th edition, I mean, Eylau is one of the titles. I think it was the second game that I bought back in the 80s. So it was not it was Clash of Arms 1st edition of Eylau that I bought probably in 86 or 88, something like that, when it came out. And so we played that a whole bunch of times. So when I started playing this one, I'm like, I can't do any of the things I did with the other game. We've got command control. So Davout, you got to figure out where Napoleon's going to be, who he's going to keep activated, who he's not going to be activated, all these different things. And so, yes, it does make for a different game. And where maybe in the old days it was like a sort of a slam dunk in for the French in many regards. It's not that case now. And some of the things that we used to do as the Russian player, you're like, oh, I can't do that now either.
Exactly.
So it makes for so if you've never played it before, hey, you're going to have a great time, and you don't have any frame of reference to know one way or the other. But if you'd played this back in the day with the old third edition rules that had no command control, I mean, you could go hog wild on lots of stuff, and I'll have all kinds of crazy stuff. With this, the Russians are really kind of, nailed in place, and the French are limited in where they can make their focus for their attack. And so that does definitely make for a different game. And I think it does get you a more realistic draw, which I think is really what the battle really, I mean, they fought each other to a draw, and it was really only the fact that the Russians bugged out and left the field to Napoleon that would have made you think it's his victory.
Well, that's exactly. So I would like to talk a little bit about that. Actually, when we were doing this, we were doing a lot of research. We were doing a lot of reading about the battle and the aftermath of it. And I wanted just to show, I don't know if anyone can see this. This was one of the really defining books of it that we used, which is James Arnold's Crisis in the Snow, if anyone wants to get a really good book about it. I also bought a copy of this, which is really interesting, which is, I don't know if you can see that.
Russian eyewitness accounts of the campaign of 1807.
Right, which is just gives great insight into, what was going on here. And I think the big difference between our version, third edition, and the first two editions is since the introduction of those, so much more information has been made available. A lot more detail on the orders of battle and troop strengths. A gentleman by the name of George Nofziger did some amazing work. If people are interested in it, there's a bunch of websites devoted to his work, which are really detailed breakdowns of what was actually at the battle and the troop strength and all those types of things. And so we tried to rely on that stuff to make it more accurate and more sort of dialed in. And, the other thing through the playtesting is we learned very quickly that, and I'm sure anyone who's played the game knows, you can't play the Russians like you play French, and you can't play the French like you play the Russians.
Yeah.
And it's going to take, if you're not familiar with this fight, it's going to take you a couple go-throughs to figure out how the hell am I supposed to play these Russians? Turns out they're super, super powerful. But if you play them like you play the French, you're going to get your butt kicked.
Yep.
Because you can't. They just don't. And like this, what you're showing right here, this is an interesting part of the fight. This looks like just after the Prussians entered
Prussians have arrived. Yeah.
The Prussians have arrived, and we had to. So in the original game, the original two versions, the Prussians are almost like super troopers. They've got great morale. They're firing at times 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at that and we're like, why are the Prussians firing at times 4 when in Jena and Auerstadt, they're only firing at times 3? And they have all these minuses for being outside line. So we've tried to incorporate that back into this game because it's only, 4 months after Auerstadt and Jena?
Yeah, those are in October of 1806.
And this is the exact same army that fought those fights. Now, they did save the day. I mean, the Prussians show up and forced march all the way up to Ankalapen, which is the French had really pushed. Davout had done a masterful job of pushing the Russians back. This is after the great cavalry charge of Murat. But the Prussians show up and basically, steady the line and were able to push the French back until the evening. And then that's when you have the Council of War in which Bennigsen is pulls all his commanders together and basically says, what should we do? And his commanders want to continue the fight, and Bennigsen is like, "No, we got to get out of here." I think he realized how much hurt Napoleon had put on his army.
Right.
And then also the logistics. His logistics train was shot. He had no more ammunition. He was almost out of ammo. His troops were just beat up. There was like no gas left in the tank for him. And I think that's why they decided to bug out.
Right. No, interesting. So, as I recall, there was, with the scenarios, there's a possibility for continuing on to fight
Yes.
the second day, if somebody wants to do that.
We incorporated that. Yeah, we thought, well, what if Bennigsen decided to stay? What would happen? And so, the troops get a little bit refreshed. Some of the wounded come back.
Right.
But the big thing is, for the Russians, it's really hard to reload your ammunition wagons. And without the artillery, the Russians it's really tough on the Russians. They need they need those big guns.
Yeah, because as I recall, their fire multipliers for their infantry are not very good.
Yeah, it's basically, with the Russians, you're not going to win in a firefight. You cannot. You can't maneuver and fire like the French do. That's not what they did. So, with the Russians, my advice is for people who are playing the Russians, it's, you got to do what the Russians did, which is use your large regiments. You break down some of your regiments into battalions, but you keep a couple regiments from the division sort of as ready reserve, and you find where you can assault, and you go in and you use cold hard steel, right? That's what the Russians were known for. And then you line up your battalions to try to create great shots with the artillery, because their guns are just really powerful.
Yeah.
And another thing I don't know if people really know much about is that after the fight, Napoleon was very upset with the way the French army performed with its artillery. And there's a series of reforms in the French army to make their artillery batteries more uniform, and to really plus up the artillery in the actual corps, because he realized that they were outgunned in the fight.
Yes. Yeah. And I do know from what we had done with the playtesting that there are some modifications to the 5th edition. So dealing with like defending artillery and things like that.
Yes.
Where you could use some infantry, even though you can't stack it. If it's their position behind the artillery, it could come forward and kind of help out if the artillery is being assaulted. So there's some different things that we went through. And of course, like anything else with the play testing, usually you get something that happens and you're like, okay, Ed, how do you handle this?
Yes.
So we had the situation where Augereau got hit by ricochet fire, and he was like 3 hexes back, but bing, 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 it just bounces along, and this big battery ends up catching him, and he gets killed. And we're like, okay, what happens now? And so then Ed had to go and figure out, okay, this is how the command situation would work. This is what happens to your command points. So kind of figuring that out in the framework of 5th edition rules.
Yeah. So we did create a rule about that. If the French lose one of their marshals, Napoleon has the option of taking Marshal Berthier, and making him a corps commander. He can become a corps commander. And I think he maintains the MU. You still get the CP for him.
Right.
But the penalty is that all of a sudden Napoleon doesn't have his chief of staff. And so he loses that extra 5 hex command rate, that is a tough I would not want to have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because Napoleon, you need that command range.
Yeah, particularly at this battle, because I know that with our play tests, for the most part, I know that we tended to have better weather than you guys were getting. But that's because we were playing it in Southern California. So
yeah, of course.
Obviously, we had more clear weather turns, just the way the dice rolled. It was favoring us here in Southern California. But It was pretty nasty. Augereau's corps tried to step off to maybe attack towards that center line of the
Mhm.
Russians, and just got completely hammered by the Russian artillery, and got to the point where they're just like, on second thought, we're going to go back over the ridge where we were hiding, and let Davout figure it out.
This is
So
actually one of the interesting things, and from your play test, we were keeping up to date on your play test and our play test, and what we realized was the French player is like, oh, this damn snow is killing me. This damn snow, like we need to get rid of this damn snow. And what we realized is once the snow was gone, the French player was like, bring back the snow.
yeah, because I can't get shot as easily with those.
Exactly, because
Yep.
the snow limits the range of those Russian heavy guns, and it's like, oh my gosh, the snow is like they wanted the snow back because the guns were just they're brutal. You've got to find, as a French player, you've got to find a way to get at those guns.
Yeah.
If
And
because they'll kill you.
yeah, and that was true from the original version of Eylau, of the game itself. So, tell me some more interesting things or stories about the production, because you were helping out then with the playtesting. You were making all of these playtest counters. I know you sent me at least
Yes.
2 sets when we had updates. So tell me what happened next. I know that I was giving feedback to Ed. You were giving feedback to Ed. Some other people were sending in feedback, so updating the scenarios, updating some of the rules. What was the next stage in the process for you as the game developer?
So for me, it was working on. We did a lot of work on the special rules and getting those right, taking all the feedback and incorporating that into the special rules. And they they went to print relatively quickly because, like I should say, they went to initial. They went to artist mockup. So when you create a document like that, you do it in Word, and you think, oh, in Word it looks good, but Word is not a production document. You need an artist to put these together, and Ed has an artist who does that, and it was really amazing. Ed worked on the historical commentary, which is a beautiful sort of synopsis if people are interested in it. It's a really well done synopsis of the fight, and the personalities in the fight. So that took up a good deal of time. And then the thing that really threw us for a loop was taking my initial designs for the counters, and then me having to learn how to actually produce counters. And when you're dealing with actual printing of things, it is a whole new world. When you do hand done counters, you just I got a little punch, I punch out the counters. I use the reason the counters are all so uniform is what I do is I have a half-inch punch, which I got in a craft store. I think I showed
Right.
it to you. It's actually
Yeah,
quite good.
I bought one
Yeah.
because it's the same way. If I want to make a one-off counter, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and
Yeah.
and you can make these perfectly square counters. And then what I do is I take that and I affix it to a blank counter. I buy blank counters, so the counters are perfectly square, so you don't have to cut counters. So everything is nice and regiment. Well, it's one thing to do individually hand cut counters and glue them on. That's a process for hobbyists, and that's what I had been doing. But when you actually start developing a product that has to go to print and is going to get printed 1,000 times, the tolerances are really tough. Everything has to align perfectly, front and back. And what's interesting is the way you do it is so. If you can zoom in a little bit, and I don't know if people are interested in this or not, but the counters on the far left, over on the French counters on the far left, when you go to do the backs and you set them up, they have to be on the far right. It's a mirror. It's a reverse mirror.
Yeah.
And it's like you have a book and you have to sort of fold the page like this together. And getting everything lined up perfectly was really tough. And then the other thing that's really difficult is Ed and Clash of Arms does a really great job. And what they do is, they've got this 6-color printing process, which is normally a printing process is 4 colors. Well, the 6 colors are gold and silver. He does a separate printing process for those. And those have to be laid down first. And so what you have to do is you have to create a layer for gold and a layer for the silver, and they have to be underneath everything. And then you have to build the counter around it. So if you look at the shields, what you have to do is you have to get the shape of the shield, and you have to make a cutout of that shape in the counter so that the infantry box nestles perfectly on top. But there's a void there, and under that void is where the gold and silver does. And that took, honestly, weeks for me to figure out how to do that. And then the colors you have to use CMYK for some colors, then you have to use these special colors for the gold and silver. And then when dealing with the print guys, they have a language. It's like completely foreign language. So we'd submit the counters to the printer, and I'd get back this email, and I'm like, it's English. I know the words. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
And I'm like literally doing Google searches and trying to understand, what does this phrase mean, and how do I translate this into Adobe? So it was quite the process. I'm glad I learned it, because we started transitioning to the next one, and I'm working on the designs now. I'm not the developer for this game. I'm just doing some of the counter work for it. Right. But we're doing Fuentes de Onoro now. We're starting to work on that, which is a great fight in the Peninsula campaign. So I'm taking everything I learned that, and hopefully this process will be a lot easier.
Well, good. All right. Well, it sounds like there's a few people who've got some background experience in the printing world.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So they know, they're like, oh yeah, we understand. It is, it sounds, well, and when I saw you there at Consim, I know you were pulling out your hair, and you don't have much more than I do. And, just talking about this whole thing where you got to get this layer in, and then there's this other stuff and whatever else. So it is, order of printing. Yep.
I went thinking, what? I've had 3 careers. I went to college. I am very computer literate. How hard can it be?
Yeah,
it's really hard.
Words.
It's really hard. And it's very different than being a hobbyist doing it to being a production person doing it. And I give the huge kudos to the artists who can do this stuff and knock it out, because it's really tough. This is our play group. This is the test group. So Ed is, of course, in the maroon. My buddy Bill Kocher is in next to Ed, and then Tom Bailey is across. Tom and I were the Russians, and Ed and Bill were the French. It was a great session.
Yeah, good. Let's see if there's any other photos you sent me. You've got
that's
like a mock-up of your.
That's the you're looking at dead Russians. If you can zoom in on that, you'll see. This is
dead Ersky, it looks like. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is the thing with the Russians, is that their infantry it's expendable. You have to be willing to expend your infantry. You got to treat it like a Russian commander would treat a Russian soldier. There are a lot more Russian soldiers out there, but those guns, you do not want to lose those guns.
Yeah.
Save the guns. And that's what happened. As you can see, Markov, that looks like, Markov's detachment. Yeah. By the end of the fight, there was nothing left. They were on level 3.
Oh, wow.
They were toast. Excuse me. It was, it's a fun, I really hope folks have a good time with it. We put our heart and soul into it.
Well, and I think they will. I certainly know that I enjoyed playing it and working on it and all the intricacies. I know that Ed does a phenomenal job with the polish of everything. The graphics are great, and the quality of production is great. So I'm looking forward to getting this on the table at some point here in the future and poking around with it. And as usual, from what I recall, he usually has a vassal module for it, usually within a year or so from the original
Yeah,
publishing date.
we have someone working on that right now. Someone has volunteered to do the vassal module, so I think they're working on it, and I think they're hoping to have it out sometime after the new year.
Okay, so that should be good for those of us who
Right.
are looking for someone to play the game with, and we might not have somebody local, or maybe you live in a house where there's a cat, and the cat can't get into Vassal unless it's Schrodinger's cat there, in which case maybe your counters have moved, maybe they haven't. You don't know until you open the Vassal module. So
yeah, and I'm assuming someone will probably put together a Rules 30 version of it. We don't have that, but I'm sure someone will do that as well.
Yeah, usually Nigel or one of the other fellows who kind of helps oversee the labataille.us account. And it should be a little easier for them to do because the command control stuff is usually the biggest challenge. And that's already been figured out by, by you guys with the 5th edition rules. So the only other thing that's going to kind of play into it is some of the special rules and maybe how that might be impacted by the Regs 30 stuff. So it looks like it'd be the sort of thing that people can play with whatever rule set they care to. I always encourage people to use the rule set that comes in the box. So if that's, 5th edition, play with 5th edition. If you've got, a preference, then play with whatever one you like or you and your buddies play with. And then do your best with whatever adaptations you make and just have fun with it. So it's my understanding that the game it's out, it's being shipped. People are receiving it here around the country. So if you haven't ordered a copy, you can do so from Clash of Arms Games. And
I just ask people, be gentle with your comments. We're sensitive folks over here.
Yes. Well, and so now the next project that you're helping with slightly, but who's taking the lead with Fuentes de Horno? Is that something that Ed is working on principally?
So there's a designer who developed the game. He's heavily involved. I don't recall his name off the top of my head.
Okay.
But he's the one who's sort of spearheading it. I'm doing the initial sort of counter work based on what I've done here. I think he's looking at Charlie to do the maps again.
Right.
Fuentes it's big. It's Fuentes is really interesting. It's Peninsula Campaign. It's 1811. It's Viscount Wellington, not Duke of Wellington. It's Viscount Wellington, and Messina. Mm-hmm. But it's a long map, so I think it's going to be a double mapper again. It's lots of Brits, lots of French, Portuguese. Right. There's one Spanish unit. There's one Spanish cavalry unit in the entire game, but it's the polar opposite of Eylau. We're actually playtesting, and I'm playtesting it as well. In that Eylau is chock-a-block full of units, right? You've got this huge army positioned with a huge army coming on, with Napoleon coming on. Whereas Fuentes is much smaller and a lot more maneuver, which is a lot of fun. And it's really broken terrain. Mm-hmm. And, you've got the Brits by 1811 are pretty good. And you've got the French 1811, which are not as good in the peninsula, but you've got this contingent from the Army of the North, which is Bessières, who's sitting there with a bunch of guard cav, and he doesn't like Messina, and he doesn't. Messina's asking for help, and Bessières just watching, going, yeah, no. So basically, historically, he just sat the battle out doing nothing.
Right.
If he'd gotten involved, Wellington basically said it was touch and go. If he knew, and he says this, he says that if Napoleon was there, we would have lost because Napoleon would have gotten Messina and would have gotten Bessières moving with the guard.
Right.
So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. But Ed is spearheading it, and I'm just sort of doing a little bit of the production work on that one.
Okay. Well, that sounds cool. I know that whenever you guys have a game for me to work on, I will do my best to test it and break it, and come up with all kinds of issues that that you're not expecting. What happens if the Duke of Wellington drinks a bad cup of tea? Okay,
Exactly.
we gotta
Exactly.
figure.
We kind of, I mean, you need that because people play this and no two players are alike, and people do the craziest things, and the craziest things happen. And so you've got
Yeah,
to
just
test
random
those
stuff happens. Yeah,
yeah, you got to test those edge scenarios
yeah, yeah.
and make them work. And then people always also sort of introduce their own sort of house rules, and that's great. Look, it's you buy the game, it's your game. Play it the way you want to play it. We just want you to play it, have a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, folks, I don't know that we've got too many more things to chat about at this point. If any of you have any questions about anything Alex has talked about or anything that we have failed to cover, feel free to pipe in. And otherwise, we'll kind of wrap things up here slowly. As usual, I like to thank all the folks that support the channel. I have a little program with buymeacoffee.com. So if you like, what I do and you want to send me $5 or whatever else, you just go to buymeacoffee.com, Eric's table, and you can then send me a couple of bucks and I can buy a coffee, or in my case, a tea. And that's great. Or if you want to become a monthly member, I've got just some simple monthly memberships that you can participate in. So thanks to the people that are there for helping and contributing. It helps to pay for the subscription to the software and some of the other technical stuff that I do. And that's about it for that. Let's see, we got another comment here. Oh, Pete's asking about scenario details.
Yes. So there are I think 5, 6 scenarios. So there's the grand battle, of course. Scenario 1 is the opening day, or the afternoon of the afternoon before the battle, which is basically Markov and the fight for the town. There is and these are actually from these have been modified a bit, but they're from the original game. They've got the gun scenario, which is basically a solitaire scenario where you've got Augereau marching in front of getting blasted by the guns. You've got Murat's grand charge, right? The great massive grand charge. He saves the day for the French. It really is his high watermark, I would argue. The grand battle, and then there's the extension scenario, which we created, which is what would have happened if after the full day of battle, the Russians had decided to stick around. And so you can play the next day. And the next day is a clear day. There is no snow. The troops are all beat up. They're a bit, recouped from the fight. But for both sides, ammunition becomes a problem for the guns because both sides, their logistic chains was really shot. So those are the scenarios that we've included.
Cool. Yep. All right. Let's see here. Grim says, Eylau is a lot of troops on a fairly small battlefield, where Fuentes de Orono is a smaller armies on a very large battlefield. Yeah. So that's the contrast between the two. So, all right. Pete says, thanks. Good. And then Matt says, thank you for the evening. Appreciate you both spending the time. Well, good. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And then, as we say, if you have any questions, if you weren't able to watch this in real time, go ahead and make some comments in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer those for you. If I don't have the answer, I will ask Alex. And so that way, you're not done. You thought you were done with this. You're not done yet. Yeah,
no, trust me, I am not done. I am not done at all.
Yeah, yeah. So Perry says, great show. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you.
And here we go. Thanks for everything as always. Okay, everybody. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So thanks to Alex. Thank you so much for spending the time and talking about the design process or the development process behind the scenes, and sharing some of those photos with us. And for everybody else out there, until our next episode. Oh, wait, I'm not going to sign off yet. We've got live streams going on. So if you're not aware, on Sunday nights, we are doing a live stream of Battles of the Age of Reason. This is the Battle of Germantown, 1777. We're doing it with a blind, double blind style. So the battle itself took place in the snow, not in the snow. Gosh, we're in the snow in Eylau. It took place in the fog, heavy fog. Washington is trying to attack the British and catch them by surprise. In reality, though, I'm playing the Americans, and I think I know where my troops are going. But in the snow, in the fog, they could be going any number of other directions. So it'll be fun to see how things go. The British player doesn't know what's going on until we bump into each other, and so it's a lot of fun. Tune in to that on Sundays around 6 p.m. Pacific time, and then on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time, I'm helping demonstrator show. We've got a big multiplayer game of La Bataille de Dresden going on. They're using the Regs 30 rules for that. And then now on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. Pacific time, for those of you that are out in Europe, this is just for you. We're playing La Bataille de Culm, and we're using the premier rules that came with the Against the Odds magazine version of that game. So lots of stuff for you to watch. And if you have questions or comments on that or anything else, go ahead and post them. And now, until our next episode, be well.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.